be mindful. Okay, awesome. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Maria Levine. I am a relationship coach. I help women create the romantic relationships that they truly want to be in. And for those of you who might not be sure what a relationship coach is, well, I help women learn the skills, the mindset, and overcome all of the obstacles in their way to healthy, fulfilling relationships. So you and I would just talk one-on-one every week, and we would overcome whatever obstacles are in your way. I would be giving you strategies so that you can make the progress that you want to be making. Today, what I ask of you is to be present. I see both of you are here, so just make sure that you're not distracted, that you're not, on your phones or just doing anything. I want to make sure that this hour is for you, that you get the absolute most out of it, okay? You're going to do that by being present and by committing to taking one thing away that you can actively try and apply. So it's one thing to kind of learn information passively and to just hear it and think it's interesting, but it's a whole other level to take that information and try it out in your life, right? So for everybody here, I just say pick one thing that really calls to you, that really resonates with you, and try it out. Just give it a chance, see how it feels, because that's how we're going to make progress, not by learning more information, but by applying and trying new things. Okay, so commit to taking at least one thing. I hope that there's going to be more than one thing, many, many things that you can take and apply and try out. But at the bare minimum, I always say on my webinars, pick one thing and try it out. And let me know how it goes, because I want to hear all about your experience afterward. And like I said, make sure to sign up for the email list. Click the link in there, put your name and your email so you can get the replay, so you can watch this again. I will also be giving you the important conversation guide, which is going to be paired with this webinar really well. And I'll tell you more about that later, but you're going to want to join so you don't miss that. And then before we jump in, just a little bit about me and my history. I want to tell you that I used to struggle so hard at having conversations. I would bury things deep, deep, deep down and never bring it up until they were about to explode. And I created a lot of really unhealthy relationships by doing that, because I didn't want to have that confrontation or that conflict. I would just pretend like it wasn't bothering me or like it wasn't important to me. And I would become really unhappy because I wasn't speaking up for what was important to me and I wasn't getting what I wanted. So finally, I had to learn how to value myself and that what I wanted really mattered. And that's when things begin to change. I also learned a lot of the skills that I'm about to show you today, and that really transformed everything for me. So now I use the skills to teach other people so that they can overcome what's holding them back, so that they can create the loving romance or relationship of their dreams. So if you do everything that I show you today, you will 100% guarantee see change in your conversations, see change in your relationship. If you only try some of the things, you will still see change. So try a few things out and let me know how it goes for you. Okay, so at the very baseline of everything that we're doing, it's important for you to know that what you want matters. Okay, so we have to have developed this mindset that.
Hello, guys.
Oh, here we go.
Someone new just joined.
Yes. Hi there. Welcome in. I'm sorry. I think you were waiting for me to let you in. I apologize about that. I'm just going to go ahead. So we just started, so you didn't miss too much. So what I wanted to say is that there are two types of skills that I teach. There's the mindset of it all, and then there's the practical skills. Practical skills are really obvious. They're like step 1, step 2, step 3, right? Mindset skills are a little bit different because they're about the way that you think and they're about the things that you believe. So what you want to do is you want to check in with yourself whenever I offer you a mindset, whenever I offer you a thought or a new perspective, so that you can see where you land in terms of that mindset. So the mindset that I'm going to use that is going to be the base for everything that we're learning today is what you want matters. Okay, this is an important mindset that if you don't embody it fully and allow it to show up in your life, you're not going to be able to have these kinds of conversations that are really going to catapult you to the next level. So what you want to do is you want to make sure, take a moment, check in with yourself. Do you truly believe that what you want matters and that it's worth going out and getting, right? So take a moment and on a scale from 1 to 10, Ask yourself, how much do I believe that I have the right to ask for what I want? Is that something that is automatic, like, yes, of course, no doubt in my mind, because that would be more of a 10? Or are you like a 3 or a 4 where you're like, sometimes yes, but sometimes no? Or do you not have this at all? Are you like, no, I don't, I always put other people in front of me. This is really difficult for me to work on. Just know where you're at, because you need to be able to develop the mindset that you matter. And when you have that mindset and that belief like rooted in your core, you're going to show up for difficult discussions in a way that prioritizes you and what you want. You're going to be braver, you're going to be bolder, and that is the energy that we need to have effective communication and conversations. So just take a moment and check in. Do I believe that what I want matters? Am I willing to go out and get it? Now, whenever I ask you to embrace a new belief or to try it on, there are a few stages to taking on a new belief.
Hello, excuse me.
Oh, do me a favor and anything you want to say, just put it in the chat. And then at the very, very end, I promise there will be time for you to come on and talk with me.
But I don't have time for the end. I need to go like soon.
Oh, I'm sorry then. That's just the way that I want to run these things. So anyway, for the rest of you guys, if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I will be happy to address them. So there are going to be 2 stages to believing a new belief, okay? The first is going to be this intellectual knowing that it's like, I understand this, it makes sense to me, right? That's an intellectual knowing. Like, I can see how it might be something that I would want to believe, but there's a bit of a dissonance where I'm not fully there yet, okay? And you know this because when you think the belief, it's like, it feels just a little bit foreign, right? Like, I'll give you an example. So I'm not a millionaire and I don't believe that I'm a millionaire, right? So when I think the thought I'm a millionaire, it just doesn't really ring true because I don't believe that. I don't see that reflected in the world. So that belief, when I think I'm a millionaire, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel foreign. It's not going to feel like it fits me. Okay. But when I think something like I'm a great coach, right? I really believe that. I really embody that. And when I think that, it really settles in and it feels natural and right. So we all have beliefs about ourselves that we have had over many, many years. And we have also had beliefs that we've just developed recently, right? Because we're always changing. So you know what it's like to develop new beliefs about yourself. And the same thing goes with new mentalities, new mindsets, new perspectives. So if this is something that you're not 100% at, when you think the thought, what I want matters, this is how we transition from it being a new thought to an embodied belief, okay? Or an embodied feeling. First, like I said, we just introduce ourselves to the thought. We're just become aware of it and we notice that it feels foreign. Like we're like with the fact that it feels foreign and we don't make it mean that it's not something that we want to take on or really believe. It's just like it's part of the process that when I think this thought, even though I want to believe it, I don't really feel like it's true yet, right? That's the first step. Then what happens is we continue to practice it. So we continue to think about it. Okay, what I want matters. And we start to really look for evidence for why it's probably true. And we just kind of sit with it. And slowly it becomes a little bit more and more comfortable of a thought. And then what happens is your your thoughts that completely contradict this one new thought will come up because they're like at war. The new thought and the old thought are battling it out. And so you're kind of in a bit of an unease, this what they call cognitive dissonance, because you're choosing to believe 2 contradictory thoughts at the same time. At one hand, you believe that what you want matters. And on the other hand, you're like, yeah, but it doesn't really feel like it. Maybe it makes me selfish. And you have all of these doubts, right? So they're battling. And that discomfort is going to be part of the process. And it's your job to deconstruct your old beliefs. Now, this is the work that I do with my clients. This is how coaching works. And what we do is we look at the old thoughts and we question them. We ask them, are they true? What else could be true? Has this thought really been serving me? Like we start to really get into the nitty gritty of what we believe and slowly tearing it apart so that we can see that, you know what, thinking in this old way does not actually benefit me. It is not actually helping me create the life that I want. And when we really allow ourselves to see that, it starts to kind of disappear the thought. It stops having so much weight over our lives. And the new thought, the new perspective or belief can start to take over. And that's when change happens. And when we do that for long enough, it starts to feel less and less of a practice, kind of a forced thing, and it becomes effortless. We start to really feel it in our bodies and it starts to resonate. So just to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, I didn't always believe I was a good coach, right? When I was first doing this, I was still really nervous and still really unsure of myself. And so it took a lot of practice for me to really embody this belief that I am great. And so in that way, we can slowly start to develop a new identity, new beliefs, ways that will work for us in our relationships in the long run. Okay. So anytime I bring up a new mindset, I want you to try it on like you're trying on a new sweater and just put it on and say, okay, is this something that would benefit my life to believe, to take on, to practice? And then just know the stages of practicing the belief. So the belief that I'm trying to sell you on as the foundation of mastering difficult conversations is that what you want matters. I want you to be at a 10 with this belief. I want you to embody it and feel the strength of knowing that what you want matters and that you deserve to go out and get it. You deserve to speak up for yourself when you have conversations, when you're asking for what you want, when you're going to your boss or your parents or whatever. When you know deep down that what you want matters, you're much more likely to speak up and to get what you want. Now, the second phase of this is going to be that your feelings are meant to be felt, right? So this is at the core of all of my teachings. It's that if we don't allow our emotions, we will not be able to do anything difficult. Now, think about what stops us most of the time from having difficult conversations. For the majority of us, it's going to be something akin to fear, right? We are scared of confronting. We are scared of being told no or of rejection. And therefore, we quiet ourselves. We pretend that we don't need to be having the conversation, or we don't show up in the way that we really want to. And then the result is that we don't get to have that clear, awesome communication that we want. So what we need to learn how to do is process our feelings, process our heavy emotions so that we can act through the fear, right? We take action even though we're in fear, and that is what courage is. So what we need to do is learn how to self-soothe. We need to calm down our nervous system so that we can know that we're going to be there for ourselves when things get stressful. Emotions don't have to be the barrier to doing what you want to do, to creating the action or the life that you want, because we're going to learn how to navigate them, how to process them, and how to act anyway. Or we're going to learn how to create them, right? How to build courage, build confidence. We can navigate all that once we learn and master the skill of processing and allowing our emotions. So if you've been to any of my old webinars, you probably know that this is something that I teach very often because I think it's at the core of it. So I'm going to teach it again, just in case you need a reminder. So whenever you're in having a strong emotion, you're experiencing an intense feeling, what you want to do is you want to stop and you want to recognize the name of the emotion. So if I'm about to have a difficult conversation and I feel really nervous and scared, I just want to say, okay, take a pause and just think, I am nervous, right? Just say it quietly to myself, or I am scared. Name the emotion. And then you're going to bring your focus from the thoughts or the like, what's going on or what's wrong with me, and you're going to drop it into your body. Okay. So you're going to bring the focus back to where is the emotion? So for me, like if I'm experiencing, let's say, anxiety, I'm going to feel anxiety in my arms. It's going to feel tingly. So you want to ask yourself, what does it feel like? Is it hot? Is it cold, right? For me, like sadness tends to feel really dense and like thick in my throat. Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Is there a shape? You want to get as detailed as you possibly can when it comes to how you're feeling and what it feels like. What is the sensation of it? This is like a short meditation. I promise it shouldn't take longer than 30 seconds to 90 seconds, okay? You're just going to get away from trying to avoid it to getting into the feeling. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to notice that it's really tempting to want to avoid and distract and resist it. It's what we are kind of instinctually destined to do with emotions, especially really strong ones. We want to just pretend that it's not there, or go to our phones, or have a snack, or, anything except be with the emotion. So you want to notice that if that happens to you, and you want to make a conscious choice to allow it and process it. Okay. You're going to say to the emotion, you are allowed to be here, and you're going to take a deep breath. Okay. When you do that, what happens is you kind of open up to the experience of it, you relax into it, and you start to notice. Oh, let's see. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so where was I? Yes, you want to notice that now I'm feeling a heavy emotion. Look at that. Okay. So you want to notice that you might want to resist it. You might want to push it away, and you want to say, you're allowed to be here. It is safe to feel you. Whatever phrase or word you think is going to be the most beneficial to get you to accept what's going on for you. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to watch as it shifts. So when you pay attention to your emotions, it starts to kind of move around. Maybe it starts to pulse, or it starts to lessen or increase in intensity. It'll do something because you're watching it. So you just want to get really curious, super fascinated. What is this feeling doing? And that's it. You're going to notice that the intensity will decrease. It's going to be easier for you to have access to your rational mind because you're not so heightened in emotion. And it's going to feel really nice. I mean, emotions in and of themselves are just vibrations in our bodies. It's actually the resistance of our emotions that is the painful part of feeling. It's not generally the emotions themselves. Now, they can be uncomfortable, they can be unpleasant, but we only make them more uncomfortable and unpleasant when we resist them and avoid them. So I want to invite you to try this on. Every time you're having a strong emotion, or if you're having fear around difficult conversations or whatever, embrace feeling your feelings. They want to be felt. That's why they're there. They want your attention. It is our job to allow them and to practice the skill of processing. And with those two skills in mind, your new mindset skills and your new feeling skills, together that lays a really strong foundation for everything else that I'm about to teach you today. Okay. So if you only take this from the webinar, you will definitely improve your communication and relationship skills tenfold. So just notice that, like, if I give you too much information, just start here and practice this, and you will improve significantly. But once you have that really dialed in, you can start to add these next layers that I'm about to talk about. Okay. And then let me make sure you guys aren't okay in the chat. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to talk about effective communication. So when you think about communication, you have to recognize that it is what I heard versus what is actually being said. Okay? Because communication is not just about paying attention and listening. It's actually about interpreting what we're hearing in the most effective way. Okay? So it's not enough to just understand what they're saying. We also have to make sure that we understand it in the way that it was meant to be understood. And that's where things can get a little dicey, because people aren't always clear when they talk, or they assume that we know what they mean, or we just take it and run with it without really stopping to clarify. And we can get really stuck in this miscommunication when we don't stop and ask and reassure ourselves that we are on the same page with the person that we're talking to. And vice versa, right? We want to make sure that we are being understood in the way that we want to be understood, not just in the way that, they kind of want to understand us. So when we get really good at communicating and really good at this process that I'm about to show you, we cut our miscommunications out. Like we get really effective in people understanding us and us understanding other people. So this is a process that if you master it, you will be so grateful because it'll just make connecting with everybody around you so much easier. So the process looks like this. We drop our stories, we leave our defenses, we listen with the goal to understand, and we repeat. So those are the 4 different actions that we take when we communicate, and you start to get into the flow of them the more you do them. So at first, they might feel foreign, they might feel weird, they might feel stiff, and after a while, they start to become a lot more easy and a lot more intuitive. Okay, so just stick with it, and they are worth embodying and taking on. And for many of us, we don't communicate this way, right? This isn't a way that we're taught. It feels a little weird. And so it will be a new way of thinking about communicating and a new way of talking to people. So, first thing you want to do is you want to drop your story. All that means is that you want to pay attention to the fact that our mind makes things mean something that they don't necessarily have to mean. Okay. Your story is your interpretation of what's happening, not what's actually happening. So that's the difference. And that doesn't mean that we don't want to have a story, but we just want to make sure that we are aware that it is a story. It's not the only possible explanation for what's happening, it's only one version of it. And when we are in acute awareness that, okay, this is a story, but we could also maybe think of it that way or this way, then we can create flexibility and openness to what people are and how they come to us. So this is a little vague, so I'll give you an example. Let's say my partner comes in one day and he's like, I don't want to talk, right? He's in a mood and he just says to me, I don't want to talk. Now, I could hear that and my immediate instinct is going to be to make it mean, right? That he's being really rude and he's not understanding of me, right? I could get really upset at him because he doesn't want to talk to me and I haven't done anything all day and I miss him. And why wouldn't he talk to me, right? Like I could go into this circle of how upset I am now that he doesn't want to talk to me. And my story becomes, he's so rude and inconsiderate of me. Okay. So that's my story now. He's rude and inconsiderate. And so when I go to talk to him, I'm going to be probably rude and inconsiderate to him, right? I'm probably going to try to battle him or maybe try to have conflict because I need him to talk to me because I want him to talk to me, right? So that's my story. So if I were to change lanes and drop my story, I would go to him, he would say, I don't want to talk, and I would still have the same reaction. I would probably still notice that my brain wants to make it mean that he's so rude and so inconsiderate of me. But instead of acting on that, I'm going to recognize that it's my story. I'm going to go, okay, I noticing that my brain wants to tell me and make me upset because he's not talking to me. Okay, I see that. And in that instant, I have a choice. I can decide what else could be true about this, right? Maybe he is rude and inconsiderate, but also what else could be going on? And when I make that shift, when I open myself up to what else could be true, I'm dropping my story and I'm opening up to what possibilities are. So I get really curious about him and I get out of my own mind and I kind of go into his for a moment and I start to question, okay, what could be going on for him, right? Maybe he had a bad day, maybe he's hungry, maybe something, devastating happened. I don't know. But I drop into what could be, what else could go wrong, and I develop sympathy. I develop just open curiosity. And so that in and of itself will shift my energy. Instead of being combative and annoyed at him, now I can be interested and curious and open. That doesn't mean I have to be super duper kind or excited that he doesn't want to talk to me, right? I can still be calm and I can still be maybe a little bit miffed, but I'm also interested in him now. So what I do after I make that shift, it's going to be completely different than what I would have done if I didn't stop and drop my story, right? So with my energy shifted, with me being open and curious, I can now approach him and just be like, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. Please let me know when you're ready to talk because I have a lot I want to say to you. Or do you want to talk about it? Is there something that happened? And that way I'm showing up kind and in generous and in a way that's much more aligned with a potential successful conversation than the one before. Okay, so that's how we drop our stories. But the first step to dropping them is knowing that we even have them. Okay, that's where our power lies. That's where we're going to need the most awareness. The second thing we want to do is we want to drop our defensiveness. So when somebody comes at us with an accusation or an opinion about us or something, our instinctive desire is always going to be to defend ourselves, right? You're wrong about me. Let me tell you why. Let me explain this to you, right? You want your voice to be understood. You don't want to be misunderstood. So your attempt to make them understand you is to tell them that they're wrong, is to tell them why this is actually what happened, not what they're saying. No, I completely understand that desire. I have it constantly, okay? But I understand intellectually that it's not the most helpful way to have a conversation. It's not going to be to come at them like this, okay? We cannot have a conversation when two people are talking at each other. And when you're being defensive, you're not talking with your partner, you're talking at. And so just notice your desire to want to defend yourself. It's perfectly human, it's perfectly natural, but ultimately it does not yield any kind of positive results. All it does is it makes them want to tell you more why you're wrong, and then you want to tell them more why you're wrong, and then you just never reach a consensus or a genuine connection conversation. So the shift that needs to happen here is that you are no longer going to try to get them to understand you. That's going to come later, okay? What you want to do first is you want to make sure that you understand them. That's going to change everything. So your priority is no longer to be understood. Now, when you understand someone, when you are on their team, when you show them that you want to hear them out, what happens is that they are more likely then to hear you out, right? They drop their defenses, they feel heard and understood by you, and then they are more likely to be able to receive you. And that is the magic of doing this. Now, that's not why we're doing this, okay? We're not doing it to manipulate them, to let them hear us out. We're doing it because this is the best way to have a cohesive and effective conversation. So you want to understand them. And if they don't offer you the same back, that's okay. They were never going to. All you did was increase your chances of it happening. So our leadership, the way we run ourselves in our relationships, will make all of the difference in the results that we get. And all we're doing is setting ourselves up to succeed. So that's what I have on defensiveness. And then the last thing that you want to start doing is you want to, this is a trick that I say, especially for people that are kind of constantly talking about the same things in circles, or maybe they're having the same arguments over and over, or maybe they're just not feeling fully connected to the person that they're talking to. What I recommend is that you say back what you think you hear them say, okay? And what you think they mean, because you could be wrong, and you want to make sure that you tell them, hey, this is what I heard you say. Is this what you mean? Because this is what I think you mean, right? And so instead of you saying, why did you mean this, right? Assuming that what you made it mean is correct, you're prefacing by saying, hey, I think this is what you meant. Is that right? Okay. And in that shift of like not assuming that you're right, but just getting a clarification from them will really make it so that you can open the path, and then they can correct you. Like, oh, I get why you would hear it that way, but actually, this is what I meant, or this is how I meant it. And then you do it again. Okay, is this what you meant, right? You repeat it back to them in your own words until they agree with you, until they're like, yep, that's exactly what I meant. That's exactly how I felt. You got it. And then once you've achieved that, that's when it can be your turn. Like, okay, this is what I have to say. Do you mind just repeating it for me so that I know that, it went the way I meant it to go? And this really allows you both to feel heard and understood by each other. like you want to understand me. You're making an attempt to understand me. And that feels really good when somebody does that for you. And again, they're more likely to increase the probability of them doing that when you do that. So this is just generally speaking. Like I said, we're going to interact with a lot of different humans. So we might not always be given back the exact same courtesy, but by showing up in this way, we increase our chances of getting the best interactions. So that's how I teach the process of most effective communication. Now what I want to talk about is the energy that we have. So I talked about this a little bit already, but I really want to emphasize that it's important that we show up in a way that allows us to be heard. Okay. Now, what does that mean, right? It means that our energy will determine the way people react to us. So I'll give you 2 examples. If I am angry and yelling and in attack mode, you will probably shut me out. Like, you probably just won't hear me. You'll probably be like, oh my God, she's so angry. She doesn't mean anything she's saying. Like, you're not paying active attention to me in that moment because all you're doing is feeling my intense emotions. And there's no rationale, there's no getting anywhere when you're in a heightened state of anger or frustration. It's really hard to have clear communication when you're in an intense emotion that way, right? So when your energy is really combative, that will make people kind of distance themselves from you instinctively, right? They kind of want to protect themselves from you. Okay. Now, on the opposite side of that, when your energy is low, when you're not confident, when you're looking down, when you're quiet, like people don't listen to you then either, right? Like people are like, oh, she must not really mean what she says, or it must not really be important. So in the way that we address what we need to address, it will make people react to us differently. It will make people notice that, oh, okay, she's saying something important, or, oh, this really means something to her, right? And it comes back down to how we're showing up, how we're thinking, and how we're feeling. So I always say, in my opinion, the best way to show up for any kind of difficult conversation is going to be kind, but bold and honest. So you want to balance being kind while also being honest. And now some people think that they can't do both. Some people think that when they are kind, they can't also be brutally honest because sometimes honesty hurts. Sometimes I say something and it's going to hurt their feelings, and that's not kind. But I think that honesty is something that you can do and say from a loving place. Like, I can tell my boyfriend that he's being kind of a jerk from a loving place. Like, I can say, like, hey, that was kind of a douchebag thing to do. I love you to pieces, but like, I don't want to be treated that way. Like, I can say that with love and warmth instead of being like, oh my God, you're such a jerk. Right? It's like he is much more likely to listen to me if I am calm and loving when I say an honest thing, even if that honest thing is harsh. Same thing with being warm and open, yet stern and confident. So you want to balance these 2 emotions of being like, I'm open to what you have to say, but also I know what I want. Also, I know where I stand. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening, but I also have my own back. So we want to balance these 2 energies. And the way that we do that comes back, like I said, to the way that we think, the way that we think about ourselves, and the way that we think about what we are asking for. So if we're having a difficult conversation where I'm asking my partner to spend more quality time with me or show me more affection or something like that, the way that I show up to that conversation, if I have my back, if I'm sure that what I want matters, I'm much more likely to receive it. And I'm much more likely to be heard. And so I want to make sure that you're aware of this when you go into these interactions with other people, because it will make a difference. So we go back to our thoughts that create our feelings, that dictate our actions. So thoughts that create confidence, thoughts that create love, right? Thoughts that create bold and honesty are all available to you, and you can intuit what they might be, right? So a thought that makes me feel bold is like, what I have to say needs to be heard, right? That's a thought that like I feel bold when I think that. A thought that makes me feel kind is like, I love my partner and I want what's best for him, right? Different ways to think about these emotions will create the interactions that you have. Now, a couple of more mindset shifts that I want to offer to you is that I can ask for what I want and it's okay to hear no. Okay. So make sure that you are prepared for the potential rejection. Okay. That is part of the risk that we take when we're in a partnership with another human being. Now, we still want to show up for that. We still want to risk the rejection because what we want is important and worth going after. So once you feel this fear of like, oh, but they might say no, I want you to take your brain down that path and be like, okay, what happens if they say no, right? What am I going to do for myself to make sure that I get what I need out of this interaction or just in general, right? If I can't get what I want from this person, then maybe I go to a friend or maybe I try to give it to myself or maybe, I get creative, but I have my back. And even if I can't get what I want here, I will find a way to get what I want. Okay. The second mindset shift is rejection means nothing about me. So if somebody breaks up with you, if someone's not interested in dating you, if someone doesn't want to give you something that you asked for, it doesn't mean anything about who you are as a person. You are still lovable, worthy, and amazing. All it means is that they had a thought and a feeling that had nothing to do with you. It's just whatever's going on for them that made them want to say no. And that's okay, right? Other people get to think and be and act in the way they want, and then we get to react to that. So other people's rejection is not a reflection on me. And then the last thought I want to offer you is I am not dependent on this, whatever it is, to be happy and complete. So, not a person, right? Not a request. I can be happy and complete because happiness and completeness comes from my thoughts and my feelings. So, I want you to try those on, see how they fit, see if you're like, yes, 100%, I agree with those. Or if some are like, oh, I'm not sure about them, we can do the work, just try to embody them and use them to improve our relationships. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about is one of my favorites, and it's that we get to create space for our people. And when I mean space, I mean it in both sense. So I mean like actual time and locations for them so that we can have opportunities to interact and to be with them. But I also mean who you show up as and who you become is a space that you create. Now that sounds a little weird, so I'm going to elaborate. Think about becoming the kind of person that your partner can feel really safe coming to. So your partner says something a little sensitive and you are there to receive it. You hear them out, you allow them to vent to you, and you don't criticize and you don't judge them and you understand them. They are so much more likely to want to come back to that. They are so much more likely to want to be with you and to share their most intimate thoughts with you because they feel like you are someone who has enough space to hold all of that they are. Okay, we can become a person that can hold the space, that can create the space for our relationship, for our partner to come to us with whatever they have, with whatever important thing they want to say to us, with if they are feeling dissatisfied, if they're unhappy in some way, we want to make sure that we can handle hearing those things because if we can't, our partners are much more likely to not tell us. They're more likely to try to go to other people. And so we want to be the kind of person that they can feel really good coming to. And that will increase the trust that they have for us and the trust that we have for them because we know that they're the kind of people that come to us about difficult things. Okay. So your partner will be able to trust you and you will be honest. You want to be honest, right? At the end of the day, even if what they say you don't necessarily like, you can still be open and understanding about it. and hear it out while also being authentic to who you are. Now that can sound like a difficult balance, but it's definitely possible for you to be like, I completely understand. I hear what you're saying. You mean this and you mean that, right? That's one thing. And then you take some time and then afterwards you're like, this is what I think about it. Or do you want to hear my thoughts on what's going on for me? And if you develop that kind of relationship where you can feel safe to share, they will be happy to hear it. And then you're more likely to have the kind of relationship that you're both really happy to be in. Now, also, you want to create a physical space. So when I say that, I mean, you want to make talking a priority in your relationship. So you want to make sure that you have weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever time to talk. So whether it's about an issue that you have on your mind, whether it's just catching up and seeing where the other person is at, prioritize sitting down and talking and connecting. So I have laid out here 3 different strategies for how you might be able to do that. If you guys are like very busy and it's really difficult for you to make time to sit down and connect. So the first strategy I have for you is tell them ahead of time, right? Super simple. So, hey, I have something on my mind. Can we make time tonight, tomorrow, later this week, this weekend, whatever that works for you? And then they can be like, yeah, that's fine. Now, if your partner is like mine, they're not going to be okay with that. They're going to be like, what's going on? What do you have to talk about? You know? And so you can always just tell them, like, okay, I have something like this to talk about. Just give them like a little brief synopsis and go, but I don't want to start talking about it right now because I don't think that this is the best time for that. And I want to make sure that we have enough availability to dive in the way that I want to dive in. So do you mind waiting until the day to talk about it more? That way they don't freak out, about like, oh, they have something to tell me or something. The second strategy, if you don't want to tell them like ahead of time, if you don't think your partner can handle that, you can just tell them right before you're about to talk about it, but make sure that you invite them, right? You ask them before you just dive into what you want to talk about. So that's going to sound a little bit like, hey, I have something I want us to talk about. Are you currently in the mood, in the mindset to talk about it with me? Because they might not, and you want to make sure that you make it okay for them to be like, no, like I'm just not in the place right now. And then you can be like, okay, that's fine, we can just move it later, or just I'll remember to bring it up when you are ready. Okay, so just make sure you get their permission, because if you start talking about something really heavy and they're not in the mood for it, you might create a conflict by accident. So just be on alert that not everybody's always ready to talk when you're ready to talk, and you want to make sure that they have room to say no if they're just not ready right now. And then the last thing is, if all else fails, if this is difficult for you or your partner just can't handle this right now, something I used to do is I would write a letter, and then I would give him the letter, and then I would say, can we talk about it? So I would hand him the letter, he would read it, and then we would have the conversation about whatever I was in the letter. And that really helped me, because I used to get really tongue-tied and I couldn't really form the thoughts in the way that I wanted to. So when I wrote them down, they became really clear and I could organize them and I could say something and then scratch it out. And so it gave me a lot of chances to get it right. And then that way I could put my argument, in the way that I wanted to, and then they could give me the response, or they could write me a letter back if they prefer that, it's up to you. So those are the 3 strategies I recommend. All at the end of the day, just don't text about it. Just don't text about it, because it's really easy to get mixed up when you're texting. Tone of voice, sarcasm, those kind of things, they don't read, and you might think you're talking about one thing, but you're not actually. So just make sure that you make time to talk on the phone, get on a Zoom call, something where you can ideally hear your voice and see your facial expressions. It would just make it much, much easier to be on the same page about, especially if this is a difficult and important conversation, which is the topic of today. So, and then the last thing I have for you is a list of the conversations that I strongly believe every couple should have. So I want to make sure that we're all setting our relationship up to last a really long time, to be really successful. And the way that we do that is we don't hide from topics. We don't hide from really heavy, difficult conversations. We embrace them and we take them on courageously and lovingly. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics of conversation that I think every couple should have is talk about trust and commitment, conflict, talk about sex and intimacy, talk about money and work, talk about family, and talk about fun. And so what I have created is, and you're gonna get that if you signed up for my email list, if you registered with the link in the chat, and I'll put it in again if it's not in there, is you're gonna get my important conversation guide. And so what that's gonna be is, I'll give you an example here. So it's going to be the topic trust and intimacy. And then what does that mean to you, right? These are the questions that you're going to talk out with your partner. Can you tell me about a time that you didn't feel like you trusted me? How can we build more trust? So this is an opportunity for you to have these important conversations about everything that's going to affect your relationship down the line. And I really love these questions because they're questions that you might not have ever thought to ask on your own, but they spark these amazing conversations that we all need to have so that we can develop deeper intimacy with our partners. So you're going to have access to that in the email. You'll probably get that later today or tomorrow, but make sure you download them and you read them and you give them a shot because they are relationship changers. I recommend them highly. And if you join my email list, like you know, you will also have more information on how to work one-on-one with me. So that's what I have for you today. I always try to leave a little bit at the end just in case anybody wants to come up, have any questions, want to clarify anything that I talked about. I always make sure that I leave a little space. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat or unmute yourself and we'll discuss it and see what's going on. Are you guys good? Do you feel like you got a lot of information, like you understood everything, everything was clear, you got what you wanted? I hope, at least. And if you do, then I'm just going to end it here. Like I said, if you signed up for the email list, you know this, you will receive the replay and the guide that I mentioned earlier. So just let me double put that in the chat just in case it wasn't in there before.